Hi everyone! I'd like to share a really neat tool that you can all use in your online class. It's called the Blackboard Live Scheduling Manager, which is also known as Blackboard Collaborate. Some of you have known this tool because you use CCC Confer, which also uses Blackboard Collaborate. So I'm going to show you how to add this to your menu, and then we're going to talk about the tool and the functionality. Now, it is a synchronous tool, and that means that you can set up a virtual conferencing session. So the first thing we're going to do is add it to our menu item. So we're going to go over here to the plus sign. Remember, this is where you can add all types of tools and different activities to your menu. So we're going to go over to the tool link, and we're going to drop down, and we're going to look for Blackboard Collaborate Scheduling Manager. Now, you can call it whatever you like. Some of our instructors like to call it virtual office hours, lecture series. I'm just going to call it Blackboard Virtual Sessions. I'm going to click on Available to Users, and I'm going to submit. Now, because I selected Available to Users, that means that students are going to be able to see it. So now I'm going to just move it up in place, and this is where I actually have my communication tools listed. Okay, now we're going to enter the Blackboard Virtual Sessions area. So I'm going to click on the link, and it's going to take us inside to where we have the Blackboard Collaborate, and we can schedule a session. So let's just stop here and talk a little bit about this. Notice you have Recordings tab and Scheduled Sessions. Once I create a session, they're going to list right out here. I can search for sessions, and I can also search for recordings. That's the beauty of this synchronous communication tool, is that you can record the sessions. So let me just talk a little bit about best practices. Some of our instructors create a session that is just open-ended. That way you can tell students that you're going to meet there for a session, maybe every Wednesday evening from 5 to 7, and you actually do have a lecture session. Or you might want to use Blackboard Collaborate for your office hours, and then you can just post in your announcements that your office hours are from 3 to 5 on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Any, variation of that is going to be up to you. Now, once you create a session, it can be open-ended so you can pop in and out. Or you can think about creating a session that might be a start and stop, and that's fine too. Another suggestion or best practice might be you have a session for lectures and maybe office hours, or a session you just want to pop in case someone needs some online tutoring. Or you can actually create another session for students to be able to go in. So you might have a session for students that they can actually go in and work together as a team. You might want to create several of those. It depends on how you're going to use this tool. So as we set up a session, I want you to be thinking about how you can use this. Okay, I'm going to show you how to create a session. We're going to click on Create the Session button, and what pops up is some information about the session name, start time, repeatability, how many minutes do you want an early session, enter. These are some areas that you might want to take some time considering. So again, you can have a start time. In one of my other classes, as I mentioned, I started it for the day, and then I let it run through the full semester because I want to be able to use it at any time, but I do also want students to know that I will be available on Thursday evenings from 5 to 7 when we do our lecture, and it will be recorded. Now, I can put that information in the announcement area or email the students. So let's just go through some of these options. Again, you have start time, repeatability, you can change the session name, the session type. Is it going to be a course, or do you want to share it among other additional courses? That might be a nice idea. teleconference options is a little confusing, so if you're not sure, make sure you put your mouse over the eye icon and then you can see what that means. I use the do not use teleconference, use voice over IP. Users are able to hear the session through their computer speakers or USB headset. What's nice about creating a session in Blackboard is it has a wizard for students to be able to go through and make sure that their audio and video is working if you want video. So again, you're going to have to go through this list and consider some of these room attributes. You do not have to have cameras. You probably do want audio. You will have the chat. You probably want to raise hand on entry turned on. That way you can know and hear when these types of things happen. For example, a student coming in or leaving. Now, I like this allow in session invitations because that means that there will be a URL that is created for you to be able to copy and paste and send out. Maybe you have an outside speaker, maybe you have someone else who wants to join and they've emailed you. So again, think about some of these options, and you can see what these options are by clicking or just moving your mouse over the eye. So come down, think about how you want to use this. If you have a PowerPoint file for a certain session, I would say go ahead and load it ahead of time. And then grade center integration. You can pull an attendance report to see who has actually attended your session, and it looks like it will create a grade center column. Roles and access. This is something to consider. I did mention before that you might want to have students have their own session, and if that's the case, you might want all users in that separate session to be moderators. Otherwise, you can actually assign moderators once you're in the session. You might want to have students be able to present, and so then in this case you want your users to join as moderators, whether you do it ahead in the settings or you do it when you actually have the session started. And then you can actually name the moderators for this particular session. So once you've decided on those settings, you will come over here and you will click on Save. Okay, there's my session and it is created right here. And I want you to also notice at the top, Success, and then to invite unregistered guests to this session, you can actually copy and paste this URL address and you could send it out to guest speakers or students that are not able to get into the classroom and maybe they're just emailing you very quickly. They need to know how to get in. Anyway, some ideas right there for using that session URL address. All right, so I'm going to start a session to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to click on the name of the session. It takes me to another room. Again, there's the guest URL, and I'm going to click on Join Room. Before I do that, if you have any issues with joining the room and opening up the virtual conferencing room, you'll notice that it may want you to download the launcher. In this case, I have not downloaded my launcher here yet for this particular computer. Notice down to the left-hand side, it is downloading the Blackboard Collaborate. And this is the meeting session that I will be able to double-click. And then it should start to open the session for me. So give it a few seconds. Be patient with it. Notice that we have a dialog box that's verifying the application. It may take some time to go through that. We're going to have another security warning dialog box. Click on Run, and then a third dialog box should appear in just a few seconds. There it is. Notice CCC Confer. Okay, so let's look around the session. What I'd like to do is just show you a few things, and then if you would like some additional help and support, I'm going to ask you to contact me so we can work together and we can even do a dry run. Notice that this recording dialog box has popped up. Now, if you're not ready to use that, you can simply close it, and you'll notice at the very top you have a record button here. You also have the load content. That's where you can load your whiteboard presentation and some of your files, and also you can load your PowerPoints. Now at the top left, as we move across, here's where you can do a web tour. So if you click on that, it's going to ask for a URL. If you wanted to give your students a web tour, possibly of a website or even the library site, I know that's a pretty popular way for instructors to use this tool. You can also use the application sharing, and that means that once you use the application sharing, you'll have this dialog box pop up and it will give you an opportunity to select what you want to share, whether it's a browser or something on your desktop. And then we have the nice whiteboard where you can actually write on and do some tutoring and some talking there. Let's see, I'm going to make sure I have that pen and I can write on it in different colors. So there's a lot of features, and it's going to take some time for you to explore that. And that's okay, because I do want you to contact me. Now over here is the panel where you could have your video show up. If you wanted video to show up, you would turn on the camera here to transmit the video. When you are talking and you're using the voice over IP, please make sure your talk button is on. You want to tell your students the same thing. Now over here you've got some little icons for emoticons. You have your raising of your hand. In fact, it defaults to the raising of the hand, and that means you're actually entered the class. So you can toggle that off. You can actually talk to students throughout and ask them to raise their hand, and if they have a question, they'll be able to turn the talk button on and ask you that question. Now what I usually do is take off some of these little items here so we can use some of the tools. Also, these tools can be accessed from over here to the top menu, and I might have mentioned earlier that there is an audio setup wizard, and I think that's a good idea for your students to use right before they start the session. So you might want to ask them to come to the session a little bit earlier. Now remember, this is synchronous live and you can record it. Now I'm just going to scroll down a little bit over here because I want you to see that there's also a chat room, and you can actually chat things here and students can ask questions. And once you type in something into the chat text box, you simply hit enter and it will appear in the chat. There's a lot of features to this, so again, I really want to share this with you. Now, I do have to say this: if your students need to have the live captioning and you're going to record this and they need to have it captioned and saved that way, then you will need to go through CCC Confer, because there is a free live captioner that you can request 48 hours in advance. And if your students need to have the captioning recorded, then again, you will need to go through CCC Confer. If you're going to be using Blackboard Collaborate as a office hour tool, or possibly a lecture that you're not going to reuse over and over again, then that's fine. You don't need to have it closed caption unless it is requested by a student. Then we need to make sure that we accommodate that student, and DSPS can also help you. So again, I just want to say, let's work together. I would really like to help you use this tool in your Blackboard classroom. Thank you for your attention, and let me know if there's anything I can do to help.